What is the end point for Republican terrorism? And, you know, not only did yesterday's election show a strong progressive drift on the Democratic side, this party, the Democratic Party, is going back to its FDR roots right now, and it's a good thing. But on the Republican side, we're seeing an aggressive move toward fascism being promoted both by the Republican base and by its right-wing billionaire donors. And, you know, I think the most visible example of this is the Republican Party's inability or unwillingness to call out the white supremacy and the replacement theory advocates within their own, you know, within the party itself. Liz Cheney yesterday tweeted, "The House GOP leadership has enabled white nationalism, white supremacy, and anti-Semitism. History has taught us that what begins with words ends in far worse. GOP leaders must renounce and reject these views and those who hold them." And she's being attacked for saying that by Republicans. At the same time, last year, 2021, 93% of all politically motivated murders in the United States were done by people affiliated with right-wing extremism, 3% by Islamic extremism, 6% by left-wing extremism, specifically anarchists and black nationalists. And I'm not even sure I'd call that left-wing, well, maybe extremism. But in any case, 91% of all the murders, politically motivated murders in the United States last year were committed by people affiliated with right-wing extremism. Over the past 10 years, according to the Anti-Defamation League, quote, of the 443 people killed at the hands of extremists over the 10-year period, 75% were killed by right-wing extremists. So how does this happen? I mean, we've got this whole replacement theory going, Tucker Carlson promoting it, Fox News promoting it, all that sort of thing. But there are really three things that are absolutely necessary for terrorism to grow in a nation. And we are seeing them right now in the United States. But let's identify these. Number one, there must be an ideology, and at the core of that ideology, a mythology of victimhood that provides the rationale for using terror as a political weapon. In the United States right now, that's the so-called Great Replacement theory. Second, to make terrorism work, there has to be an evangelist community. Now, I'm not talking about evangelicals, although many of them fit this bill, but an evangelist community, that is to say, people who support and recruit new terrorists. There has to be a supportive community for these wannabe terrorists. And they're finding that right now on Fox News. They're finding it on Facebook. They're finding it on multiple well-known websites and gamer sites now. And those must be held accountable if we're going to do something about this, whether it be in the courts or whether it be in Congress, or most importantly, frankly, in the court of public opinion. They need to be, held up, identified, and publicly shamed. The third key to a successful terrorist program is to trigger individual terrorists without your fingerprints being all over it, without specifically, tying responsibility back to the movement. You're seeing this right now in the GOP, trying to pretend that this most recent terrorist killing had nothing to do with them. The law enforcement name for this is stochastic terrorism. Stochastic is a word that means random. But in the context of terrorism, as dictionary.com notes, quote, stochastic terrorism is the public demonization of a person or group resulting in the incitement of a violent act which is statistically probable but whose specifics cannot be predicted. Great example, Bill O'Reilly calling Dr. George Tiller, Dr. Tiller the baby killer. I believe it was over 30 times on Fox News, or in the neighborhood of 30 times. And sure enough, some lone wolf terrorist goes out and shoots Dr. Tiller. Well, he wasn't a lone wolf, as I mentioned yesterday. He had a whole support group behind him. The Buffalo terrorist, the same deal. And these killers come to believe that their understanding of reality is widely shared when high-profile individuals like Tucker Carlson on Fox or Matt Gate tweeting, Tucker Carlson is correct about replacement theory. When those high-profile individuals support the terrorist position, then the terrorists assume that there's a much larger audience out there, there's a much larger support group for them, and then they begin going ahead and engaging in terrorism. We need to break all three of these pieces of the support network and the systems in place right now that support right-wing terrorism in America. If we don't, we're in deep trouble.